All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on a Tuesday night. So excited to see so many friendly faces. I'm really excited about tonight. Just like wholeheartedly the whole evening. Really looking forward to. We have Emilie and Jennifer here tonight, which we're going to introduce in a few minutes. But really, truly, not only do we have Jennifer and Emilie as our visionary leaders, but we also have CEO Bartenders with us as well, who's going to share a message with us. 1 hour is not even close to enough time to listen to the three of them share with us this evening, addressing the challenges and how we develop solutions to the issues and the crises that we face. And just the three of them are very awe-inspiring. So our communities are very fortunate to have these leaders at work for all of us in the communities that we serve. Before I turn it over to Brett tonight, we wanted to do a little transition from work Zoom mode to more engaging mode. So we have another leader in their industry tonight with us, and that's Jason Marshall. Jason is here tonight to share his expertise and knowledge with us. And he's going to be focusing on the martini tonight as the days turn longer and the sun gets a little warmer. He's going to just share with us a little bit about the martini and the martini serve and what suits you. What's a dry martini? What's a wet martini? How do you like it dirty with a twist? He's here to kind of unlock all of that for us. Jason is the president of the Oregon Bartenders Guild here in Oregon and has spent his career as a bartender advocate and mentor, providing an opportunity for the best new faces and ideas to flourish. I love that. The process has given him opportunities to stretch creatively, developing wonderful people who have branched out into their own passions and host cocktail competitions with a bartender community focus. He is also a certified executive bourbon steward and has received the WSET Level 2 Spirits Award and is a contributing writer for the Whiskey Wash. I love it. So I'll be linking all of this information in the chat, and we'll also be sharing it via follow-up email in our thank you email. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Jason.
Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
You let me know when you want me to go ahead and get started on it. If anybody has.
Yeah, I was going to say, you go for it, Jason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when Sarah reached out to me, she wanted to talk about the martini, and it's a very exciting subject because at the same time, is it an extremely popular, well-known cocktail? It's also one of the most misunderstood. Now, people have an idea of what it should be, how it should be served, what it should be garnished with, and it comes out with a whole salad. A lot of people just have an idea that it's whatever you can put in a glass that looks like this, but that's not the full story of it. That might look nice, and as you're passing around the table next to you orders one and it comes by and it looks blue and you're looking at it and it's like, oh, I want one of them. It definitely serves its purpose that way. But I can tell you're a more genuine crowd and want to learn the story about it. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the history of the martini. So technically, according to the IBA, which is the rules committee, if you will, of the cocktail community, a martini is 6 parts gin to 1 part dry vermouth. Now, that can mean a lot of things. How big is your part? And don't we all wonder that? But in the sense of the word, if you were doing this at a bar, that means what you're shooting for is 3 ounces of spirit when you're making a cocktail. So if you break that down, if it's 6 parts gin, 1 part dry vermouth, you're talking about 2 3/4 ounces of gin to 1/4 ounce of dry vermouth. Now, there's different variations on that. You know, if you want it wet, that means with a 1/2 ounce of dry vermouth. If you want it 50-50, that means half gin, half dry vermouth. You know, it can get a lot more complicated than that. If you want something dirty, you want something Vegas themed, it could be a number of things. And you have, when you add sugar to it with your lemon drops and various things like that. But we're just going to start with what it was intended to be. So a lot of people say, well, I like my martini with vodka. Fair enough. That is a wonderful thing. But technically, a vodka martini has a different name. It's actually called a kangaroo. Some people say they like to have theirs shaken. Martini is supposed to be stirred according to the generalized rules of cocktail preparation. Technically, a shaken martini is called a Bradford. But I'm going to demonstrate for you right now what we're working with as far as the traditional preparation of a martini. So how you would start out with this is you would have your mixing vessel. I have a beautifully hand-blown one from a local barware company called Bull in China right here in Portland. And this was actually a gift from them that they made for me. And it is a beautiful, beautiful vessel. And I love an opportunity to show it off anytime. Gins come in many different varieties. A lot of people say, I don't like gin because it tastes like a Christmas tree. Well, what they're picking up on is the juniper. So what gin is a flavored vodka. In order to make gin, you take vodka and then you redistill it with different botanicals. That could be any number of things. The only rule is, generalized rule in the United States and the EU, is that predominant flavoring needs to be juniper. But that's a whole spectrum and that's a whole scale. There are a lot of gins that are very juniper forward, like a Plymouth gin. There are a London dry gin is a little more balanced. There's a lovely gin also made right here in Portland called Aria that is, you would hardly be able to tell there's juniper in it at all. It's very balanced as far as the other botanicals that they use with it. But enough of the technicalities. This is Beefeater. This is probably the benchmark as far as gin. This is where you start. Everything is kind of a variation on that. So we're going to take our 2 3/4 ounces of gin, using the jigger that has lines on it that have the different measurements on there. Very important to be accurate. And for this aspect, I'm going to just stir this because I'm going to show you a little trick. Because what is 1/4 ounce? What does that even mean? Well, the thing with when you make a cocktail is, as you see, I have ice here. This is the fire, like a chef uses fire to cook their food. A bartender uses ice as their main craft instrument. But the unfortunate thing, when you use ice and you make something cold, it no longer has an aroma. And more than half of your sensation of taste comes from your sense of smell. And that's an unfortunate thing that happens when you're chilling something down this way, is that as it gets cold, the molecules will be compressed and it will not release or effervesce as it normally would, as it was intended. So as you stir something like that, and you want to make sure that you chill your glassware as well, and you would take the strainer and pour it into your glass. As such. And then with your dry vermouth, what is vermouth but a fortified, aromatized wine? Another trick of the trade, if you're going to use vermouth, make sure when you aren't using it, you keep it refrigerated, or else it will oxidize and go bad. Well, we only need a little bit of it, and it is aromatized wine. So what I like to do to make sure that we get that sensation of the aroma is I take an atomizer and I put a little bit of the vermouth in there, give it a shake, make sure the molecules are moving, and then you just spray over top of it. You can do 2 if you want, but the sensation of the aroma when you pick it up will be dancing right on top of it right there for you. And then you can add whichever garnish you like. This one happens to be one of the standards, a blue cheese stuffed olive, one of the all-time favorites. That would be your classic martini right there. Any questions so far?
I'm sold. Jason, did you call, did you say aroma?
Aromatized wine. That is what vermouth is.
And what was the spritz?
So I poured some of this aromatized wine, the dry vermouth, into the atomizer. This is just in there. So what I would do is I would take some of this, pour it a little bit into here, then I would put this in the fridge to keep it chilled, to keep it from oxidizing. And then the atomizer will give you that aroma. You just spray right over top of there. And then that engages your whole sensual experience while you're sipping on your martini.
That is amazing. So, can you say what would be your, if someone wanted a martini in Portland or the Deschutes County area, do you have any places to go? Recommendations?
Well, there most certainly is. I would say here in Portland, I'm sure it'll become more well known, but the governor has put us back down on lockdown from inside dining as of Friday. The announcement will formally come out. So I would have had earlier today, I would have had a different answer for that. But if you're here in Portland, some very good friends of my work at the Botanist in the Pearl. They have taken over what used to be the on deck space, which is in the same building where they were kind of the basement bar in there. But they've taken over that space and they have the whole top of the building right now. And they've tented it over and have it open. It's a very large space. Those are the only events I've actually done since the pandemic, because they have a wonderful outdoor space there. A lot of people have put a lot of time into, kind of revamping their method of service according to the lockdown procedures we've all had to adjust to. So I know that they will continue. It's going to be an interesting time right now as far as what the next step is, because the Sisyphean boulder has rolled back down the hill and we have to work on pushing it back up till we all get through this. But Botanist here in Portland, I'm not sure who's going to be doing outside dining in Bend. I have some very good friends down there. There's some great places, but I'm not sure who's going to be operating outside currently right now, because that's going to be the only option we have right now.
Yeah.
But I have given you one technique. If you have to do it, you should be able to do it yourself.
I am very excited to try it.
And I would love to show you one more if we have time and if you're interested.
I think we have about 2 more minutes. Can we do it quickly?
Yeah, let me just show you something really quick. Now, the original name of the martini was called the Martinez. And what that had with it was it also used gin, but it used sweet vermouth and a drop of orange bitters. That was the original cocktail. And if you go to Martinez, California, which is in the Bay Area, it's East Bay, kind of by the Lodi area, they have a big plaque right in the center of town that says Martinez. Welcome to Martinez. This is the home of the martini. So what I'm going to do here is a little variation on that. I'm going to make what's called a perfect martini. So what that means, and just for Sarah, because I know she prefers vodka, I'm going to make a perfect martini that we're going to call the Alsatine. So I'm going to use equal parts sweet vermouth, equal parts dry vermouth, so quarter ounce, 2.5 ounces of the vodka. And to tie this all together, I'm going to use 1 drop of the orange bitters. Orange bitters kind of function as the salt and pepper in the cocktail world. It's what brings out the flavors of all your other ingredients. I'm gonna stir this up again real quick, the same way. I'll make sure those, you know, if you're going to be doing this at home, it is worth it. The most overlooked and the biggest favor you can do for yourself is pay attention to the ice you're using. This is from PDX Ice, which is a company I've used a long time. Great people. They happen to started to sell their ice in zoo pans right now. And this whole bag is only $3. And I'm pretty sure that's the cheapest thing you can buy in zoo pans. But this is going to be a perfect vodka martini. And sticking with the theme of you need some sort of atomization, we're going to go with the traditional garnish, which would be a lemon twist. I'm going to take a channel knife. And if you're doing this at home, biggest suggestion I can give you is to make sure that you zest it over top of your cocktail. I don't know how close we can get on there, but if you see, there's all sort of lemony goodness that is spraying out from as I peel. You don't want to waste that. You want to put that right on top of your cocktail. Give it a little twist, release some more. I can really smell it here as I'm doing this. And here's a little trick. Take your bar spoon, take your peel, wrap it around here. You don't want to go too tight so that you break it. Just get a little coil to it. Gentle tug like that. And salute, everybody. Perfect martini.
Salute.
Also.
Oh my gosh, Jason, thank you so much. I hopefully see a whiskey night in the future. Would love.
Yeah, I might have a couple
suggestions
here we could pull from. Yeah.
Would love that. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We really appreciate
it. It was truly my pleasure. I hope I helped.
100%.
Please reach out if there's anything else I could do for you.
Yeah,
okay?
and I'm going to share all your information with everyone. So you might get some like emergency martini to like help.
Well, bars aren't really working right now, so I need to do something. So I'm happy to help.
Awesome.
But it was great to have everybody here.
So nice to meet you.
My pleasure, right. Likewise.
Thank you. All right. Well, cheers. Now, cheers. I wish I had a drink in my. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Wylde-Turner.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Jason. And something you may not have been aware of, we had a few people tonight joining us from the Bay Area, so they might be able to partake in your suggestions. So, thanks for sharing that. I don't want to bring us into a little bit different direction of why we're here tonight, is to talk about also, and we're so fortunate to be partners with two amazing people that I'll introduce to you shortly. But before we get into that, I just want to share with you how excited I am about this year's virtual event. At first, we were pretty disappointed that we weren't going to do our luncheon that we've been so fortunate to have for several years. But as this event shapes up, there's all kinds of new possibilities that I have created in this environment. In addition to that, many people who may not have attended, that 1 hour event that was at the MAC in Portland can now be a part of it. And so all of you are invited here because you are partners and sponsors and donors. So I guess I want to start by thanking all of you for your continued and generous contributions and sponsorships and donations to the organization. And look forward to seeing you at our event on May 12th. I'm going to share with you something that you may or may not know. The reason why also exists is that our mission, and our mission is very simply to promote the full inclusion of people who experience disabilities in the life of their community. But we have a vision that brings that to life, I think, in a pretty significant way. And what we vision is a future in which all people, it includes those living with developmental and other disabilities, are fully included, participating members of their communities. We see equitable access to supports and services that reflect the preferences and values of diverse communities that lead to self-determination, independence, productivity, and a healthy, satisfying quality of life. For those of you who heard me speak before this, I've been working with people with disabilities for longer than I'd like to admit. And while I've seen an evolution and an excitement about where things have come, I feel like we still have a long ways to go. There's one pretty significant barrier in our communities, and particularly for those who experience intellectual and developmental disabilities, and that is housing. And so we've decided that the primary focus and what we're working towards in this year's event and fundraisers is all around housing and supporting people in their housing. And so I think as I get to introduce Jennifer and Emilie here shortly, and as you hear from them, you'll hear why and understand why this is so critically important. I do want to just remind you that the event is coming up on May 12th, and not to forget that this event is open to everyone. Please, we've made it very, very simple this year. You can simply go to our website, also web.org, and the event is free. You can have an elevated package. I hope I'm not giving away some of the information you're going to share, Sarah, but in any event, we just want to remind that is available to people, and that you can have the elevated experience, in which case we'll send you some wine and charcuterie, and have an elevated experience at this year's May 12th event. So getting to today and get us more excited and understand why our communities and housing is so important to disabilities, I'm going to introduce you to Jennifer Knapp. Jennifer is the Executive Director of Community Vision here in Portland, Oregon, where their work is rooted in the belief that all people, regardless of perceived abilities, deserve the freedom to make the basic choices that define their lives. Working with natural support systems, including an individual's families, friends, and local communities, to build a network that provides the means for an individual to be a valued and contributing member of their community. Before coming to Oregon, Jennifer founded Community Choices, a cooperative in Illinois, offering innovative services to help people with disabilities live in their community, find employment, and developing community connections. She is a leader in supporting self-advocacy and worked as an activist to shift Illinois from institutions to community support. A few of Jennifer's many skills are connecting individuals with disabilities to community activities, as well as developing partnerships with area organizations and businesses. She also supervises the Asset Development and Dreams Builder Alliance program. Here at Also, we call on Jennifer's expertise frequently, and fortunate to have her as one of our community partners. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer to talk a little bit about housing and why that's important.
All right. Well, thanks so much for that introduction, Brett. And thanks for the opportunity, all of you also folks, to get to meet you at least virtually. I'm looking forward to your event on the 12th of May. And so the request from Sarah and Brett was to be inspirational. And I've got to admit, that is not my forte. I am practical. I am one of those people who implement things and get them done. But it was a good challenge for me, and what I thought I would share in this time together, and we have a little more time for more specific questions later, is about my why. Because I think as we all continue on this journey of moving forward to support people with disabilities to live the lives that everybody wants to live and live among the community, it's hard. And we'll be discouraged. And there'll be times where we think, what's the point? Why do I keep trying? And it's our why, that deep connection, that actually reminds us of what that is. And so for me, there was a moment when I realized that this was going to be what I did for the rest of my life. And it was back in 2004, a while ago in Illinois. And just a little bit of background before I share this story. So my first role in working with folks with disabilities was to work for a man whose name was Lester Pritchard. And he was a person who had significant cerebral palsy and had a speech impairment. So much so that when he spoke publicly, my job actually was to what we called revoice for him. So he would speak and then I would say his words so that other people could understand him. And so one of the first things that we did together was to work on stopping the reopening of an institution in Illinois. Because Illinois doesn't just have institutions, we want to reopen the old ones. And this was a political thing that the local politicians wanted jobs for their town. And the governor thought that their support was worth that promise. So Lester got himself on a committee to determine how the reopening of this institution would go. He was one of 3 people actually opposing institutions, and there were 19 on the committee who were for reopening this place. But he was somebody who always believed in amplifying his voice. So while he knew that his voice was important, we spent months actually getting signatures on petitions that was opposing the reopening. And so this one particular meeting, as opposed to just handing the committee a stack of petitions, what we had done is string them all together. And so the activists actually physically encircled the committee, holding up petitions for all of folks with disabilities and their families who had opposed this decision. So just imagine this situation, right? You have these 22 people kind of in a fishbowl with activists surrounding them, many who had disabilities. And the mayor of the town starts droning on about jobs and other people saying, oh yes, it's so important. And finally, Lester had had enough. And so he slammed his fist on the table and he said, it is not about jobs, it's about people. And he had gotten everybody's attention when he slammed his fist because, you know, that's dramatic, but nobody can understand him. And so I had to summon all of my courage to repeat what he had said with the same emphasis. And I remember just physically shaking to say, it's not about jobs, it's about people. And the activists kind of exploded of like, yeah, that's right. And the committee fell silent. And it was a moment when I realized the power of the voice. And just for what happened in that story, ironically, that was the beginning of the end for that committee. The committee just stopped meeting once things got more public. And but for me, there were kind of 2 big lessons. The first is that has become the theme of my life, that it's not about whatever you want to fill the blank in. It's not about housing even, it's not about money, it's not about politics, it's about people. And as long as that is our focus, we won't go wrong. But the second is that in that moment, if it had been me, I wouldn't have had the strength to say what needed to be said. But because my role was to amplify Lester's voice, that was something that I could do. And it was kind of this moment of, aha, like perhaps that in fact is the point. That what we are doing in the service industry and in this field is amplifying the voice of people with disabilities. That they are central and our purpose is to hear them. And I don't know about you, but over and over and over, when I ask folks what they want, it's their own place. They want to have some control and choice in their life. And it starts with being able to have a place that they call their own. So as you are going on this journey of developing more affordable and accessible housing for folks with disabilities, there are going to be tons of practical things that we need to to deal with, and I will be there for you with that. But I also want you to remember your why and to take some time to figure out what that is for you that is going to sustain you over the long haul. So that's what I have to share with you right now. And then we'll let Emilie talk, and we'll have some time for questions and digging into those practical things that I love so much. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and that was so inspiring. We are so fortunate to have partners like Jennifer and Emilie. Emilie, I get to have the distinct title of husband to Emilie, but she's far more of an amazing human than just a partner of mine in life. She is a partner in all aspects of supporting the organization and supporting people with disabilities. And so I'm going to go ahead and read her her bio, because I will probably say too many things that will make her blush if I just speak from my heart, and it's probably more mushy than most of you care to hear. So Emilie has a great skill of connecting people so their voices can be heard. She first started her advocacy journey when her son, Parker, was diagnosed with developmental disability. After graduating from the Oregon Council on Developmental Disabilities Partners in Policymaking, she went on to start a family network in Southern Oregon. Through that work, she created a web of peer supports and community relationships so families could work together and support each other in their communities. From the family network, she went on to be the CEO of Living Opportunities, a developmental disability service provider in Southern Oregon. With Emilie in leadership, Living Opportunities has been instrumental in employment transformation in Oregon, which also has been a part of. So thank you for making us a part of that, making it possible for people with disabilities to work in their communities. Additionally, Emilie has been guided the work of Oregon Council on Developmental Disabilities as a council member since 2018, and was recently, just in the last couple of weeks, named their incoming policy director. In the words of Oregon Council on Developmental Disabilities, we are confident that Oregon's policies will be created with the voices of people experiencing developmental disabilities and their families at the table. So with that, I will turn it over to my lovely partner, Emilie.
Thank you. So I first have to say, amazing to my friend Jennifer. Holy moly, my friend, did you see me leaning in the whole time? Like, I was like, just keep talking. I mean, what I have to say, just keep talking. Like, I'm one of those humans that like friend falls in love with other humans at times. And like, that was just a moment for me, FYI. Like that story, I've heard it before, but just those moments when you're like, just love her guts and what she does and why she does it. Good stuff. And also you will realize why we are kindred spirits, and that I promise you, we did not plan this, but tonight I'm going to share with you my why. We didn't even plan this. You're welcome, Sarah Cinquini and Brett Turner. So I'm Emilie Wylde-Turner, and I'm the policy director of the Oregon Council on Developmental Disabilities, and also for a few more days, the CEO of Living Opportunities. It's been a wild ride, folks. I'm not gonna lie. 2 full-time jobs right now. It's not easy work, but I'm really glad to be here with you. So at my core, I'm a storyteller. So I'm really, really glad that I was invited here tonight to tell you short stories. And I did not make a cocktail, even though I love gin, because otherwise I would be sitting here talking with you about welcoming communities for like 3.5 hours. So, because it's one of my favorite things to talk about. So I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about welcoming communities and why they're so critically important, and why they're so critically important to also end the work that they're doing moving forward. And I'm going to talk to you about welcoming communities, and I'm specifically using that language instead of inclusive communities. And this is the reason why. I think when you use the word inclusion, oftentimes people get scared. Inclusion feels like something that's specific to others, right? Something you might have to learn how to do, be trained to do, but anyone can be welcoming, right? Anyone can learn how to do that. That's something that's accessible to everybody. So that's the language I use. In order to do this, let's start at the beginning. I have to have any conversation begin with my why. And my why, as Brett said, is our 15-year-old son, Parker. So Parker is creative, smart. He's our youngest. He loves theater. He is involved in our local youth theater company down here in Southern Oregon. He's passionate about all things Marvel comics. And additionally, he sees the world through the lens of autism. So Parker was born typically developing. He met all of his developmental milestones, and before the age of 2, ran a fever of 104.5 and regressed. He lost all language and all social skills, and very quickly received, I'm going to tell you a really shortened version, received a diagnosis of autism. And one night, I mean, it happened very quickly, and we were a family on the verge of crisis. It was a very, very, very dark time in our family's story. And what I wanted for Parker at that time was really like a sheltered, segregated life. I wanted him in his special classrooms and continuing to ride his special bus and to go to all the special programs that he was enrolled in and have all the special things, and to go to his special camp that he went to and have all the special education that the world could offer him. And then I began to meet people who started to have different conversations with me. I believed that those were the things that were best for Parker because that's what the world told me was best. That's what therapists told me was best. All the people in my life told me that was what would be best. And that was the trajectory we were on. And then things change. I met self-advocates, people with disabilities who advocated for their lives, and they pointed me in a different direction and showed me different things. I met families who were further along in their journey, and they reached back a hand and showed me a different path. And fast forward, Parker receives his special education in a general ed classroom. Parker is involved in his community theater. Parker has an amazing friend group. Don't get me wrong, not always a straight path, right? Bumpy along the way. But I will say one of the best, for sure the best decision for Parker we ever made. Parker has visions for his future. Parker definitely sees what his life is going to look like. He'll tell you about what he wants for his first job. He wants to make sandwiches at Firehouse Subs, not at Subway, because Subway sandwiches, it's a lot of pressure. They watch you making the sandwiches. It's too much. At Firehouse Subs, you can do that behind, and it's not so much pressure. So I'm going to tell you why this is important. Let's think about those 15 years of education. Those students educated for those years that Parker has been in the classroom. Those actors, all those youth who have been doing theater with Parker. Those all the sports that Parker tried, did a season of golf, didn't last, he had a sports injury. All of the things that he just tried and liked and tried and didn't like, all of the activities he's done, all of those peers in his world now have a different expectation of what it means to have a person with a disability in their life, what it means to have friends in their life, what it means to have a student with disabilities educated in their classroom. I don't know about you, but I did not have students with disabilities educated in the classroom with me. When I was in school, kids with disabilities were educated somewhere else. I had to leave the classroom, and kids with disabilities were educated somewhere else. Now, if we look, culture is being changed. When we have students with disabilities, when we have younger people who are embedded in our communities, when we make choices like families like ours are making, that's how communities are changing and welcoming communities are being created. Slowly but surely, this is how welcoming communities are being created. We see that in the fact that those students now have different expectations. They will, when it comes to, like Jennifer said, they're going to make different choices for their future. People want to live in their own homes. Parker absolutely is saying, like, I want to live in my own apartment. He has a different vision for his future. When we look at jobs, at living opportunities, when we look at coming to coworkers and saying, working beside somebody with a disability, and having your community be a reflection of your workplace. I want to talk a little bit about Valley Immediate Care. So I talked about wearing two hats. I was, and still am for a few more days, the CEO of Living Opportunities. And we work with Valley Immediate Care. They are the urgent care for locally down here in Southern Oregon. And they employ 5 people who Living Opportunities supports. And they speak so incredibly highly about how that workplace has intrinsically changed due to the fact that they have had those 5 people come in and start jobs at Valley Immediate. That workplace has now intrinsically changed because the fabric now is made up of a true reflection of what the community looks like. I believe, and I know that also believes, that this community, this workplace, is now a reflection of what a community should look like. Everyone has the power to make spaces more welcoming, also is doing a phenomenal job of that. They do this in their supported employment, through their housing, and when it comes to opportunities like this, like tonight. So I'm going to turn it over back to Brett to continue the evening.
Thank you. And Sarah, I put in the chat, if you hadn't seen that, if you have questions, some of you might not have access to chat, so we'll give you an opportunity to unmute yourself if you have questions for Jennifer or Emilie. I think you can see why we invited these 2 amazing humans to be a part of, and are so fortunate to have them as a part of our partnerships and connections, ultimately to make the organization a better place. I just want to, I guess, bring it all back to what we're here for and why we're having this event. Something that you may or may not be aware of is that the majority of funding and supports for people with disabilities do not include housing. And while the number one barrier to accessing services is housing, the number one barrier to services at all, and sometimes the right support, is definitely housing. And also, and the people, and for the people that we support, we want to be a part of that. And so that's why we're inviting you to our May 12th event, and why we're asking you to consider, Rolodex is something that a thing of the past, but for those of you who were born more than 30 or 40 years ago, pre-iPhones, all of the ways that you can access your friends and family. Please don't to forget to invite all of them to our event. It is open and free to the public. Just be open with people that it is an ask event. And so it's not a requirement. It certainly will be a portion of the event that will be focused all around housing and asking for people to help support the organizations and its efforts to welcoming communities and provide a home for people that that otherwise would not be have an opportunity for this. So any questions that you have for myself or Emily or Jennifer?
Can I throw something out there? I'm just going to piggyback on you, Brett, really quickly, and let anyone know what we find too is that a personal ask from all of you to those community stakeholders that you believe that this message will resonate with. If anyone ever needs help developing a personal message to share with others, definitely reach out to me. I can help craft that. But definitely that personal reach out is definitely the best way to share any type of message. And I just wanted to just let Jennifer and Emily know like how thankful we are to have the two of you as community partners, like beyond words. Like again, 1 hour is not enough. I could like an hour each might satisfy like the information I already learned so much tonight. And I guess I just want to start maybe with a question and ask the two of you, and maybe start with Jennifer and then Emily, like if we could do 1 or 2 things, actionable things in the future, looking towards the future as advocates, what should we be looking at? What should we be doing? What should be on the forefront of our minds?
Great question. It's always good to think about advocacy. And I think what is often, well, 2 things that are most needed right now. One is to advocate for rent assistance options. So particularly for folks with disabilities, as you all very much know, many people are living on Social Security and maybe a part-time job, but the opportunity to be able to get out there to try living on their own is so critical. And so that I think is an area that, again, thankfully for those who are in the metro area, there is some funding happening at the metro area. So advocating for that to be used appropriately. And then also at the state level. So we all know, we've probably all heard of Section 8 vouchers, right? That come from the federal government. There's never enough of those, but there's starting to be some traction at the state level to say, oh, perhaps that's something that Oregon could help to solve. So pushing elected officials at the local and state levels for rent assistance would be one of the key things that I would encourage. And then the second is to help to encourage different kinds of housing alternatives. So I have to give a little shout out. I think she's actually on the call here today. Angela from the Cooney Foundation has been investing in a variety of creative solutions, and we're so excited to be able to partner with them. But things like accessory dwelling units, tiny homes, different kinds of co-housing models. So I think one of the things that's so exciting to me about this moment, and frankly, living in Oregon, again, the story I told you was from Illinois. There's so many more exciting things happening here, is just all the different opportunities to think creatively. And I think that's where we start to get people who maybe thinking about disability specifically isn't their thing, but creative housing might be. And so I think rent assistance, but then also some of the creative options that people are starting to think about to engage in that conversation with our broader community.
So I want to piggyback on that and say, thinking creatively about new and different housing options. So thinking outside of the box and moving away from the traditional ways that we've always thought, oh, people have to live this way in this format, in this funding system. I think as a system, we need to look and think outside of that. I think number two, thinking about partnering technology and housing together. So we know that one of the most expensive ways to support people is through people, right? And so a barrier is housing. Another barrier is the expense of having the support of another human. And what we know is that technology is an incredible resource to helping support someone to live in a house that they would want to live in. So one barrier is getting someone into that housing, right? The other barrier is how on a day-to-day basis do we continue to support someone to live in that housing? So this is something that Jennifer and Brett and I love to, this is what we geek out about, is talking about, you know, how we can utilize technology to support people inside houses and homes. And we think that that for sure is the direction that we should be heading as a state, as organizations into the future. That is for sure what the next generation of people coming into our system will be wanting and expecting. And if organizations, this is me planting this seed that your CEO knows, and I'm just going to be the bossy person who's saying it. He knows that this is the direction you're going to be heading. And if you don't move this way, like, you're going to go the way of the dinosaur. So he needs you to help get them there, get also there. Like, this is important stuff, right? Houses need to have technology in it so that people can, the technology that they want to live there, the way that they want to live. People are expensive. Humans are expensive. And all of us would rather have our phones tell us where to go, when to be there, how to get there, right? Instead of having a human stand right here and tell us how to do everything. We all make those choices, right? To have our technology tell us how to do something instead of another person. People with disabilities aren't any different. And so I think we need to note that and start making those changes and looking to the future.
That sounds like a task force that all of us, I think, would definitely want to be on for sure. Oh, that is really cool. I like how Brett just got put on notice too.
I mean, he knows this, but I'll just say that I'll be the bossy one that says, like, yes, when we need to pay for this now. And it was open up their checkbooks and do it. It's so important.
Yeah. So I have one more follow-up question for the both of you. We have a few minutes left, and just more about leadership in general. And like in this, after, you know, with this past year, and as leaders, and keep moving the momentum and keep moving forward. So many, like, it's been a hard year, but then we've also seen so many amazing things this year. Like, how do the two of you as leaders continue to inspire yourself, and then also inspiring the organization in our community? How do we keep moving forward? How do we keep it going? Either one of you want to start?
Sure, Emilie, go for it. Go for it.
no, you should go first, Jennifer. Go ahead.
So yeah, I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. One is honestly, you all. Being able to work with also, and I've been able to talk with a few of you, and to see you all kind of catching the fire for housing opportunities, to me is inspiring, because then it's like, oh, well then it's just a bigger group that's going to tackle this amazingly large problem. So honestly, that has been inspirational to me, to see the fire that you all have. Again, have to do the practical side a little bit. Certainly just setting some clear goals. So one of the goals that we have as Community Vision is that we're going to help set aside 100 units in the Portland metro area for folks with disabilities in the coming year, in the coming year or two. And that having a very clear goal like that you can measure and say, okay, how are we doing towards that? To me is, as the achiever that I like to be, is important to be able to measure us against. And then lastly, just kind of what I had already shared is just to continue to stay in touch with the people we support. So to continue to remember, oh, right, there's some advocates who are always calling me out on how we haven't achieved everything that they want, and they're not living exactly where they want to live yet. And so having the folks who it's their lives, and to continue to hear from them is inspirational and challenging.
I think it's okay to say this year has been so hard. And oh man, it's been so hard. It's been really hard. It's been incredibly hard to be a provider organization during this time, right? And to lead. That's why I was like, no, you go first. So I think that the listening to the voices of, you have those core people who show up on your phone, who are calling and saying, how are you doing? And people that self-advocates that I serve with on committees, or people supported by the organization. I have those people that call and check in every few days. And whether that's to call me out on something, or to check in on me, see how I'm doing on something. I think that helps me stay grounded, because it reminds me of my why, right? That my why is not the day-to-day HR, like all of the stuff that really consumes my day-to-day Zooms and my 12 hours staring at a screen. And moments like this, because it makes me get like really excited about this work. Like that moment of talking about technology and houses, I was like, yes, let's talk more about that. That's moments that I get to talk about what really the future should be about, and who else should be at the table, and whose voices aren't at the table, and who's missing from this conversation, and who else needs to be brought in, and who do we need, who are the people who can help move this forward. So that that's what kind of gets me to get excited about the next week and the next week during a really difficult pandemic year.
Thank you. All right, that went by really fast. Thank you to Jennifer and Emilie and Brett. Do you have any last closing word? Do you want to close us out?
I would love to, and I just want to say thank you. I apologize. We're always super respectful of people's times. We really try to end on time, but a lot of important stuff that was being shared, and I appreciate everybody staying a few minutes extra. And I would be remiss not to say of some of the things that I've been inspired by over this last year, as Emilie shared, as it's been such a challenging year for all of us in so many ways. And we have a unique situation in the work that we do that it, continue to forge forward, and just been inspired by the people that have supported, or that we've continued to support, and what we refer to our advocates, our employees. We have about 300 of them also. Our 300 advocates within our organization continuing to be creative and figure out ways to keep the supports going and help people live healthy and safe, and still as much as we can in these pandemic times of being part of our communities as in any way we can. And I've just been so amazed at the creativity and the level of depths that people have gone to make things happen and continue our mission during these really difficult and challenging times. So thank you for showing up tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting all of your friends and family to the May 12th event. And thank you, Sarah, and Lindsay for making it so easy for all of us. You just go to alsoweb.org and click on the events and register. It's super quick and easy and fun. And you can even have that elevated experience if you want to. And there's other things on there like golden tickets and some other fun stuff that you can win. So anyway, I'm just really excited, and thank you for making this possible to help make the people that are supported by the organization live more inclusive lives, more welcoming lives. Welcoming lives. I'm going to change my language. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time.